Healing from a breakup is always going to be a difficult thing, but it adds a whole nother level to it if it was a narcissistic kind of relationship. This kind of healing journey can feel like a roller coaster. And even though narcissism is becoming more and more of a popular thing and there's a lot of people talking about it, it's still difficult to figure out which resources are going to help us heal. And this is why 11 months ago I started documenting what my healing journey was so that other people can learn about my challenges and my triumphs when I've been putting myself together after a narcissistic relationship. Yo, it's your friendly neighborhood knucklehead, and in this video, I'm going over the 10-11 month mark in my healing journey post-narcissistic relationship. Now, if you've been watching my videos thus far, you'll know my story, but quickly, I was in a relationship for about 2 years where I was living with my partner and we had a dog, we had like a family, I had a whole job and a whole life built around this situation. And it all came crumbling down. I had to hit the eject button. I left that living situation, left the dog, left the jobs, and pretty much came back to live with my dad at 30 years old. Now, going into that relationship, I was an empathic and anxious person. Coming out of it, I was diagnosed with full-on post-traumatic stress disorder. And right out of the gate, I got myself a therapist to really make sure I was going to do the right work in putting myself back on track and building a better version of myself leaving that situation. And if you want to hear more about what I've been going through within the first 9 months, you're gonna have to click up at my healing journey playlist. But right now, let's get into what's happening currently at the 10-11 month mark. So the two biggest challenges at the 10-month mark are reoccurring things that have been happening along the way within the first 9 months as well, which is having some really intense dreams about the past relationship and about that other person, and also reoccurring thoughts and memories that will just come out of nowhere throughout the day. And while these are real symptoms of grieving the loss of a person, grieving the loss of things, it's also a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's also a symptom of something else that's special to recovering from a narcissistic relationship, and that is
cognitive dissonance.
Now, at the 10-month mark, I felt like I was doing really well, and yet somehow these dreams and these thoughts were coming out of nowhere, resurfacing, and sort of throwing me off a little bit. And I would think to myself, am I really healing? Am I getting better if these things are still coming up? And part of me was getting really impatient. I was thinking, man, maybe I'll never heal from this. Maybe I'm going about this all wrong. And the more impatient I got, the more resistance to letting go of that stuff I actually felt. And it's around this time too where loneliness was really starting to set in, which therein lies the beginning of the cognitive dissonance, because the loneliness and the impatience can snowball into thinking about all of the good things from that last relationship, and we start glamorizing that other person, and maybe things weren't as bad as we thought they were. Maybe even we start second guessing if we made the right decision. And so I'll bring up the real graphic here of what cognitive dissonance is. By definition, it's an unpleasant psychological state resulting from inconsistency between two or more elements in a cognitive system. And for our case, for empathic people and for people recovering from a narcissistic relationship, the two things are pretty much, was that a good person or was that a bad person? And that's what leads to this rumination, trying to figure out what happened, because that person was such a Jekyll and Hyde. There were unstable, erratic, and abusive but at the same time, they were attractive and sweet and loving. They would always say nice things and want to be better and want to work on things, but yet they had actions that didn't follow through. So it leaves us trying to come to terms with which side do we really believe is the real person. And so I'll bring up this second graphic here, which is signs of cognitive dissonance. And this is big. The last bullet point right there is feeling defeated and hopeless because you don't know how to address what feels off. And to me, this was one of the big things that was overarching, and that was coming back to me in my dreams and throughout the day in these random thoughts. I was putting myself back in these situations where things felt off and thinking about how was I gonna address these in the moment. Sometimes I would even be talking to myself as if that other person is there. And that will move into like the second to last bullet point there, where we feel guilt or regret about not doing anything in the moment. And to me, that's the root thing in all of these other bullet points, is that feeling of guilt and shame that we didn't know then what we know now. And if you're like me and you were dealing with covert narcissism, it's a little bit more intense because of how many layers there were to that person. That person was masking their narcissistic tendencies so that it made us feel like maybe they really weren't a narcissist, or maybe they were battling with that other personality. Maybe the real person was the nice person. But the answer to this is so beautifully put into this last graphic here, which is dealing with cognitive dissonance of a narcissistic person. Instead of us trying to figure out, were they a good person? Were they a bad person? We have to just think of them as just defective. We have to just think of them as disordered, something that was just completely inconsistent. They were consistently inconsistent. And for a lot of us, it's going to drive us crazy because it doesn't make sense why someone would say all of these things but then do completely different things. But this is the real struggle, is being okay with these things not making sense, being okay with that person's behavior not falling in line with what they said. And this is the real radical acceptance that will help us move through periods of cognitive dissonance. Now, even into the 11th month mark, there's still going to be things that come up, but we have to remember what's going to get us through these periods of cognitive dissonance, because it is the root of the thoughts. It is the root of the dreams. It is the root with not being able to come to terms with that relationship being over. We have to move into the acceptance that the person was not all there. They were not all of what they made themselves out to be. As empaths or empathic people, we feel like, well, if we're just there giving them as much support as they need, they'll move through that. But the reality is we cannot complete another person. It's not going to work if they're 50% and we're 50%. We both have to be 100%, because if we are completing one another, we are completing the cycle of codependency. And so moving into the 11-month mark, my mission was to keep moving through that cognitive dissonance, but now tackling the loneliness. And that was moving into feeling whole and complete within myself, building up my self-esteem, building up my confidence in myself. And for most of us, confidence, real confidence, and not flaky confidence, is going to come from what we do. Sure, a lot of us will have confidence in what we look like and how we present ourselves, but the real confidence in who we are as a person, our character. That's gonna come from the things that we do on a daily basis, the routines we have, the missions that we have, and the overall attitude that we want to bring to the world. What I wanted to bring to the world was positivity. I wanted to be someone that was positive and friendly and leaving a good impression on anybody that I was interacting with. And for me, it started by having a flexible morning routine. I was experimenting consistently based on how I slept. There were some days where I would be meditating for a whole hour, maybe even an hour and a half, moving into breathing exercises, Wim Hof breathing exercises, reading books in the morning, or just waking up and going right to the guitar. I was experimenting based on how I was feeling and how I was sleeping. Throughout the day, it was consistently trying to embody that of a positive person. I even picked up this book called The Power of Positive Thinking, which is something that Steve Harvey recommended. It is rooted in Christianity principles, but a lot of things are really spot on. And starting the day or ending the day with that book has been giving me this mindset that I always am trying to stay positive. I'm starting to notice when I have negative thoughts, and this is also coming from some of the Joe Dispenza meditations I've been doing, is to really keep track and notice when negative thoughts are coming in, and consistently on a daily basis remind myself that I want to be positive, remind myself that I want to have compassion for myself. And just a side note, spending less time on the phone, especially at night, social media, there's so many things on there that are potentially triggering that I've found can really trigger bad dreams. That has been a big game changer too, in stepping away from that as being a part of my routine. So those have been my main challenges and triumphs in the 11th month mark of my healing journey as an empathic person leaving a narcissistic relationship. And if you want to see the other things going on in my world, I really invite you to follow me on Instagram, where you'll be seeing all the content that I've been putting out, all of the self-empowerment stuff that I've been doing on a daily basis that you won't see here on YouTube. But of course, to stay updated on my healing journey and my other powerful messages, please subscribe to the channel. You can check out up here is going to be my playlist on the healing journey if you need to catch up on the first 9 months. But up here is a video that I did a little while ago that's 3 non-verbal signs of narcissism so that we can better spot these people. Thank you so much for watching, and stay creative.